Betrayal behind the family business, a tale of power and deceit. Family comes first, Lucas said, raising his glass and giving me a knowing look. His voice was casual, but there was something in his eyes that sent a chill down my spine. We were gathered around the dinner table like we always did on Sundays. The familiar hum of conversation and clinking silverware was a backdrop to the usual banter. My wife, Sarah, sat beside me, her gentle smile giving me a sense of peace after a long week. Across from me, my brother-in-law, Lucas, leaned back in his chair, savoring a sip of wine, his gaze never leaving me. I shifted in my seat, trying to shake the feeling that something was off. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, trying to keep the tone light. Lucas smiled, that same calm smile he always wore, but there was something different about it tonight. "You know," he said, tapping the rim of his glass thoughtfully. "Family helps each other, especially when things get tough." I nodded, the words seeming harmless enough, but his eyes lingered too long. A moment of awkward silence followed. Sarah shot me a quick glance, her hand gently resting on mine beneath the table. I could feel her tension too. She knew her brother just as well as I did. "So, how's the business going?" Lucas continued, his tone now a little too casual. "Still doing well with all those long-term clients of yours?" I hesitated. It wasn't like I hadn't spoken about the business before, but we'd always kept it light at family dinners. It was our unspoken rule, no work talk, just family. But Lucas wasn't taking the hint. "Yeah," I said, pushing my food around on my plate. "We're steady. Just keeping things moving at a manageable pace." Lucas leaned in, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. "But surely you've got plans for expansion, right? I mean, with your success, you could grow even bigger. Maybe partner up with someone who has a little more reach in the market." My stomach tightened. Something about his words didn't sit right. "We're doing fine, Lucas," I replied, keeping my voice even. "We're focused on what we can handle. No need to rush into anything big." But Lucas didn't back off. He pressed on, his questions sharp and probing, each one slipping deeper into the territory of my business. "How many clients did we have now? Were they all locked into long-term contracts? Was I thinking about restructuring? And when was the last time I'd considered bringing in outside investors?" Each question felt like a weight added to my chest. My mind raced, trying to figure out what was behind all this sudden interest. I glanced at Sarah. Her face was unreadable, but her grip on my hand tightened just slightly. We'd been married for 10 years, and she knew when something wasn't right. If she was feeling this unease, it wasn't just me. "How's your business going, Lucas?" I deflected, hoping to shift the conversation. "Last I heard, things weren't looking too great on your end." He chuckled, though the sound didn't reach his eyes. You know, it's tough. But that's why family's so important, right? We help each other out. That's how we grow." I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas wasn't talking about family. He was talking about something else entirely. The conversation moved on, but that moment stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about his words, "Family comes first." It wasn't just a casual remark anymore. It felt like a warning. And as I sat there, surrounded by my family, I realized that whatever Lucas was planning, it was already set in motion. And I had no idea how deep this was going to go. It was a quiet morning at the office when I got the unexpected knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not Lucas. He had never set foot in my company's headquarters before, but there he was, grinning like he owned the place. "James, my man," Lucas said as he pushed the door open without waiting for an invitation. "Hope I'm not interrupting." I raised an eyebrow, setting down the report I had been reviewing. "What are you doing here, Lucas?" "Oh, just thought I'd swing by, see the place for myself," he said, glancing around the office with exaggerated interest. "Impressive. Real impressive. You've built something solid here." I crossed my arms. "Thanks, but we're good. What's this really about?" He chuckled, not missing a beat. "Straight to the point. I like that." He stepped further into my office, taking a seat without being asked. "Well, I'll get right to it then. I've been thinking about your business, about what you've built. And I think it's time we talk about combining forces." My heart skipped a beat. "Combining forces?" I echoed, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Exactly," he said, leaning forward, his voice suddenly more serious. "You've got the stability. I've got the connections. Together, we could take this to the next level. Think about it, expansion, new markets, new clients. The potential is huge, James." I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Something about his pitch didn't sit right. "I'm not looking to change the way things are going," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We've been growing steadily. No need for big risks." Lucas waved me off like it was nothing. "Steady is fine, sure. But you've got a team to think about, clients to keep happy, right? And when things get tough, who's there for you?" "Family." His words hung in the air, thick with implication. My mind raced, but I kept my expression steady. What are you saying, Lucas? He smiled that same smile, the one that never quite reached his eyes. I'm saying family should come first. You don't want to see anyone struggle. Not when you've got the ability to help. I stood up, pacing slightly. I'm happy to help, but this isn't about charity. You want to merge, you want to take my business somewhere, fine. But I don't make decisions based on it. Family first, right? He cut me off, his voice lowering, more menacing than before. You've heard the saying, James. You know what it means. Family takes care of each other, especially when there's an opportunity to make things better. I felt the walls close in. There it was again, the phrase that sent a shiver down my spine. Family first. I had always thought of that as something comforting, a reminder of loyalty, but now it felt like a trap. I'm not sure what you're really asking, Lucas, I said, keeping my voice as even as I could. You're talking about helping each other out. But I don't need help. Oh, I know you don't need help, he said with a knowing grin. But when your family's in trouble, what's the right thing to do? You're sitting on a goldmine, James. You've worked hard for this, but you can't do it alone forever. You know how these things work. A little extra push and you'll be unstoppable. Family first, right? His words lingered in my mind, sinking deeper with every repetition. And that's when it hit me, family first wasn't just a nice idea. It was a strategy. A tool he was using to manipulate me. Before I share what happened next, the moment that pushed me to dig deeper into Lucas's past, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button because this story is just getting started. I turned back to Lucas, trying to hide my growing suspicion. I'll think about it, Lucas. But no promises. He stood up, clearly satisfied with his progress. Take your time, James. Just don't wait too long. Family doesn't like to wait. The door closed behind him and I was left alone with my thoughts. Something was wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas wasn't just offering a partnership. He was trying to take what was mine and family was just the excuse. The seeds of distrust had been planted and now it was time to figure out just how deep Lucas's intentions ran. The more I thought about Lucas's offer, the more it gnawed at me. There was something wrong about it, something I couldn't shake off. And as the days passed, the unease turned into a relentless suspicion. I decided to dig deeper into his business dealings just to see what I was really getting involved in. I started with the basics. Public records, company filings, anything that could give me insight into the financial health of Lucas's ventures. What I uncovered wasn't pretty. There were failed startups, one after another, each more disastrous than the last. I saw lawsuits from disgruntled investors, complaints from employees who hadn't been paid in months, and worse, multiple instances where he'd sold off assets in a panic to cover mounting debts. His financial instability was more than just a phase, it was a pattern. Lucas had burned through millions of dollars and there was nothing to show for it. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Lucas wasn't just interested in collaborating, he was desperate. Desperate to use my success as a lifeline to plug the holes in his sinking ship. And that realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He was using family to manipulate me. I wasn't his brother-in-law, I was his way out. I couldn't stop thinking about that phrase, family comes first. He had used it as a shield, making it sound like the right thing to do. But I saw it for what it really was, a tool, a weapon designed to guilt me into helping him, no matter the cost. As if the weight of his manipulation wasn't enough, the pressure from my own family was mounting. Calls from Sarah's parents, messages from her cousins, each one urging me to help Lucas. He's family, James. You can't just turn your back on him now. The words echoed in my head over and over until I felt like I was suffocating. That night, I tried to talk to Sarah about it, but she was already caught up in the whirlwind. She didn't want to believe it. She couldn't. Lucas was her brother, after all. You have to help him, James, she said, her voice pleading. I know he's made mistakes, but he's trying. This could be his chance to turn things around. And if you help him, we all benefit. But the more Sarah defended Lucas, the more I saw how deep his influence ran. She was torn between supporting me and supporting him, and I knew she felt trapped. I could see it in her eyes, the silent battle she was fighting. But what was at stake wasn't just our marriage, it was everything I'd worked for. My business. My employees. My reputation. All of it could be swallowed up by his chaos. Lucas doesn't want to turn things around, Sarah, I said, my voice tight with frustration. He wants to destroy everything I've built, and he's using you and me to do it. Don't you see that? She recoiled, hurt flashing across her face. How can you say that? He's family, James. We help family. I ran a hand through my hair, exhausted by the conversation. I want to help him, I do. But not at the cost of everything we've worked for. Not at the cost of us. The next few days were a blur of calls, texts, and tense meetings. Each time I tried to make my case, the family pushed back harder. "Don't be selfish, James," Sarah's mom said one evening, her voice tight. "Think of the bigger picture. If we all chip in, this could be a huge opportunity." They were all playing the same card. Family first. But what they didn't realize was that this wasn't about family anymore. It was about survival. And Lucas was drowning, pulling everyone around him down in the process. By the end of the week, the pressure had reached a boiling point. Sarah and I barely spoke anymore, each of us retreating into our own thoughts. I knew she wanted to believe in her brother, to see the good in him, but I couldn't. Not after everything I'd uncovered. The truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I was trapped between two worlds, one where I'd spent years building something real, something meaningful, and another where my own family was pushing me to throw it all away for the sake of one man's ego. I didn't want to lose Sarah, but I couldn't let Lucas destroy everything I'd worked for. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that helping him wasn't just a bad idea, it was a dangerous one. Family was supposed to be a source of support, not a weapon to manipulate and control. But Lucas had turned that idea on its head. He wasn't interested in family. He was interested in using it to get what he wanted. I had no choice but to confront him. The moment I walked into the office that morning, I knew something had changed. The air felt thick, like a storm was brewing. Employees were whispering in hushed voices, exchanging worried glances. The usual hum of productivity had been replaced by tension, and it was clear that something was wrong. I found Nicholas, my right-hand man, by the coffee machine. His face was grim. "James, we need to talk," he said before I could even ask. "Liam's been talking to our clients. Offering them discounts, promising changes. It's bad." A cold chill ran through me. I knew it. Lucas wasn't just trying to partner up. He was setting up a full-scale takeover. What did he promise them? I asked, my voice steady, though my insides were anything but. "Everything," Nicholas said, his eyes narrowing. "He's telling them about restructuring plans, new management, better investment. And he's doing it behind your back, James. Some of them are starting to pull out. There's talk of this merger spreading through the team. People are getting scared." I felt the weight of it settle on me. I had been blind, thinking Lucas might just be offering help. But now it was clear he was after everything. My clients, my employees, my company. All of it. I didn't wait for another moment. I stormed into my office, slammed the door shut behind me, and dialed Lucas's number. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded as soon as he picked up. He chuckled, the sound grating on my nerves. "James, relax. I'm just doing what needs to be done. I've got investors, a plan. This is how businesses grow." "No," I cut him off, my anger rising. "You're not growing anything. You're sabotaging everything I've worked for. You've been talking to my clients, offering them deals behind my back. This is a hostile takeover, Lucas. You've been plotting this from the start." He didn't sound surprised, just amused. "You don't get it, do you? This is about family, James. I'm doing what's best for all of us. We're stronger together. Think about it, family first." That damn phrase again. My hands clenched into fists. "This isn't about family, Lucas. This is about your greed. You're using family to manipulate me. You've always been good at that, haven't you?" There was a long pause on the other end, but when he spoke again, his voice was low and menacing. "You think you can stop me? James, the way I see it, you're already in too deep. Everyone's expecting you to come through. You can't just back out now. You've already made your decision, haven't you?" "Not if I can help it," I snapped. "Stay away from my clients. Stay away from my business." I slammed the phone down, my heart pounding. The weight of the decision I had to make felt suffocating. That evening, the family dinner was set to take place. And this time, it wasn't just another quiet evening at my in-laws' house. I knew what was coming. Lucas was going to make his move. I arrived with Sarah, my mind racing, each step heavier than the last. When we walked into the house, the tension hit me immediately. Everyone was there: Sarah's parents, her cousins, even a few distant relatives. They were all waiting, expectantly, like they had rehearsed this moment. And Lucas was there, sitting at the head of the table, his smug grin never leaving his face. "James," Lucas greeted me with a nod, his voice dripping with false warmth. "I'm glad you could make it. We need to talk." I took a deep breath and sat down, feeling the eyes of the entire room on me. Sarah's father spoke first, his voice warm but insistent. "James, we've all been talking. We think you should seriously consider Lucas's offer. This could change everything for the better. He's got investors lined up. This could be your chance to really grow the business." I looked around the table, meeting the eyes of family members I'd known for years. They all seemed to agree with him. My stomach churned. "I've built this business from the ground up," I said, my voice steady. "I didn't get here by taking shortcuts or relying on anyone else. Lucas leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. You don't get it, James. This isn't about shortcuts. This is about family. We help each other. Family first, remember? That phrase again. It was like a knife twisting in my chest. I turned to Sarah, hoping for her support. But when I looked at her, I saw the doubt in her eyes, the hesitation. She was torn, caught between her brother and her husband. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. You need to think about this, James, Sarah's mother said softly. We're all in this together. If you don't help Lucas, you're going to lose everything. And it'll be your fault. I looked around the room and I saw it, the manipulation was everywhere. My family had become pawns in Lucas's game, and I was the last piece standing between him and total control. No, I said firmly, standing up. I won't let you destroy what I've worked for. I've built this company with my blood, sweat, and tears. I'm not giving it up to someone who thinks they can take everything from me. Lucas stood up too, his expression darkening. You really think you can just walk away from this, James? You've already made your choice. Family first, remember? I looked at Sarah, her face pale, her eyes filled with silent pleas. I could feel the tension between us, but I had to do this. For me. For my company. For our future. I'm not signing anything, I said, my voice cold and resolute. Not now, not ever. This ends here. The room fell silent, and for a moment I thought Lucas might strike. But then he just smiled, a bitter, almost victorious smile. You'll regret this, James, he said quietly. I'll make sure of it. I turned and walked out, my heart racing, the weight of the decision still heavy on my chest. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't backing down. No matter what Lucas or anyone said. The days that followed were filled with a quiet, unsettling determination. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas was still plotting, still scheming, trying to find a way to get what he wanted. I knew I had to dig deeper, that I had to uncover every secret, every lie he'd been hiding behind that carefully constructed mask of charm and manipulation. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing through every document, every file I could get my hands on. With the help of Mark, my most trusted colleague, I began piecing together the truth. We dug into Lucas's past, his failed businesses, the disgruntled investors, the countless families he'd left in ruins. What I found was shocking but not surprising. Lucas had a pattern. A well-rehearsed game of manipulation using his charm and promises of family first to worm his way into struggling businesses only to tear them apart once he had control. There were court cases, settlements made in secret, and employees left with nothing. He had destroyed every company he'd touched, all for his own benefit. The truth hit me hard, but it also solidified my resolve. Lucas wasn't just after my business, he was after everything I held dear. He had no intention of helping anyone, no intention of making things better. He was only interested in feeding his own ego, using family as a shield to justify his greed. The moment of reckoning was coming. I sat down with Emily, the woman who had been my partner for over a decade. We had weathered storms together, but this was different. This wasn't just a disagreement, it was a betrayal. I laid out all the evidence in front of her, the damning proof of everything Lucas had done. I watched as she read through the documents, her face growing pale with each passing page. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with regret. How did I not see this? She whispered. How did I not see what he was doing? I shook my head, my voice soft but firm. It wasn't you, Em. He's good at this. He knows how to make people believe he's the good guy. But we can't let him win. Not now. I could see the struggle in her eyes, the pull of family loyalty fighting against the truth she was facing. But I knew deep down that Emily understood what needed to be done. She wasn't just my wife, she was the woman who believed in what we'd built together. And together we would stop Lucas. The plan was set in motion. I gathered all the evidence, emails, financial records, even audio recordings of his conversations with investors and clients, and headed straight to his office. The confrontation was inevitable. I had to face him to show him the proof of his betrayal. When I arrived at Lucas's office, he didn't seem surprised to see me. If anything, there was a smugness in his eyes, like he knew I was walking into a trap of his making. But today, I wasn't the one caught in a trap. James, Lucas said, his tone dripping with false friendliness. What's this about? You've been awfully quiet lately. I placed the stack of papers on his desk, my hands steady despite the fury burning inside me. This is about you, Lucas. All the lies, the manipulation, the destruction you've caused. I've got everything right here. I laid the evidence in front of him, watching as his confident smile faltered. His eyes scanned the documents, the truth sinking in. He knew he was caught. You can't do this, Lucas spat, his voice growing cold. You don't understand. You think this is about business, but it's about family. Family first, James. His words were a desperate last attempt to regain control, but they only fueled my resolve. Family? You don't know the first thing about family, Lucas. Real family is about trust. It's about respect. It's not about using people for your own gain. Lucas stood up, his fists clenched, but I didn't flinch. You think you've won? This isn't over, James. I still have connections. You'll regret this. But I wasn't done. I'm calling the police, I said, my voice cold and resolute. What you've done isn't just unethical. It's illegal. You're done, Lucas. The look on his face was one I would never forget. It was the look of someone who had finally realized their game was over, that their web of lies had unraveled. And as he tried to make a run for it, the police arrived just in time to take him into custody. The next few weeks were a blur of legal battles, but in the end, Lucas's empire came crashing down. His business was seized, his investors withdrew, and his fraudulent schemes were exposed for the world to see. As for the family, the ones who had supported him for so long, those who had once believed his lies, they began to see the truth. The loyalty they had placed in him crumbled as the full extent of his betrayal was laid bare. But in the end, my business stood strong. My employees were safe. And Emily and I, though scarred by the events, had found a deeper understanding of what family really meant. Family first, Lucas had said, but I had learned that true family is built on trust, respect, and the willingness to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost.